In the time when our ancestors walked with the spirits, when the boundary between the living and the dead was as thin as spider silk, there lived a woman named Araize in a small village nestled between the forests and the rivers of ancient Nigeria. Her name meant daughter of the king, though she was no princess, only a woman blessed with a heart so pure that even the birds would pause their songs to hear her laugh. For 9 moons, Araize carried her child with joy radiating from her very soul. She would walk through the village square, her hand resting on her swollen belly, greeting everyone with that smile that could melt the hardest heart. But the old women whispered among themselves when she passed. They had seen the signs, the way her shadow sometimes moved against the sun, the dreams she spoke of where her mother, long dead, reached out with skeletal hands, calling her home to the ancestors. On the night of the child's coming, the earth itself seemed to hold its breath. The midwives gathered in Araize's compound as the labor pains began. Hours turned into an eternity of struggle. The chief midwife, Mama Nkechi, felt a cold dread settle in her bones as she watched the blood flow. Too much blood, far too much. "The bleeding won't stop. Bring more cloths," one midwife cried out, panic rising in her voice. Another ran into the night. "Fetch the herbalist! Tell him Araize is leaving us!" Through her fading strength, Araize gripped Mama Nkechi's hand with surprising force. Her voice came in barely a whisper. "My child, promise me. Promise you will tell him. I chose life. I chose his life." Then came the baby's cry, strong and loud, announcing his arrival to the world. But in that same moment, Araize's hand went limp. Her eyes, which had held such light, stared at nothing. The mother had given everything to bring forth life, and in doing so, had surrendered her own. The wailing that followed was not the joyful ululation that should greet a newborn. It was the sound of grief, deep and terrible, echoing through the night. 3 days later, the entire village gathered in the square. It was not a celebration, but a trial. The baby boy, wrapped in white cloth, lay in Mama Nkechi's arms as she stood before the council of elders. The village head, Ichi Okonkwo, sat upon his carved wooden stool, his face grave beneath the red cap of authority. Around him, 7 elders sat in judgment, their faces set like stone. The law was ancient, carved into the very foundations of their society. It was called Ikpu Ọchụ, the guilt of death. If a child took the mother's life in being born, that child carried a debt that must be paid. The tradition stated clearly, such a child belonged not to the living, but to the spirits. He must be sent away from the community until the day he could atone for the blood spilled at his birth. Araize's brother, Obina, stood before the council, his eyes red from weeping. "Elders, I beg you, he is but an infant. He knew not what he did. My sister loved him. She chose to bring him into this world. Would you punish her final wish?" Ichi Okonkwo's voice was heavy with sorrow, but firm with conviction. "Obina, your grief speaks, and we hear it. But the law exists not to punish, but to maintain balance. Your sister's chi, her life force was taken. The spirits demand recognition of this debt. If we do not observe our traditions, chaos will reign upon us all. The ancestors will turn their faces from our village." The oldest elder, Ichi Uguchukwu, whose face was a map of wrinkles, spoke next. "The child will be taken to the prison of shadows, the sacred grove where those who owe debts to the spirit world must dwell. He will remain there, cared for by the keeper of lost souls, until he reaches the age of understanding. Only then can he seek redemption and return to live among us." Mama Nkechi clutched the baby tighter, tears streaming down her face. "He is innocent. Look at him. He is but 3 days old." "And yet," another elder intoned, "his mother's blood stains the earth. This is our way. This is how balance is maintained." The gavel of judgment, a ceremonial staff carved with the faces of ancestors, struck the ground 3 times. The sentence was passed. The baby, named Chukwudi, meaning God exists, would be taken at dawn to the prison of shadows. That night, Mama Nkechi held little Chukwudi close, singing him the lullabies his mother would never sing. She wept until her eyes ran dry, knowing that tomorrow she would hand this innocent life over to a fate he did not deserve. The prison of shadows was not what one might imagine. It was a sacred grove deep in the forest where ancient Iroko trees twisted toward the sky, and the air was thick with the presence of unseen watchers. Here lived Nneka, the keeper of lost souls, an old woman who had devoted her life to caring for those the village deemed spiritually indebted. Nneka received baby Chukwudi with gentle hands and sad eyes. She had seen many children come through these woods, each carrying burdens too heavy for their small shoulders, but never one so young, never an infant sentenced from his very first breath. Years passed like water flowing over stones, slowly but surely shaping everything in its path. Nneka raised Chukwudi with love, teaching him the ways of the forest, the language of birds, and the stories of his people. She told him of his mother, Adaize, painting pictures with words of a woman whose love was so great that she gave everything. But she also had to tell him the truth. On his 7th birthday, as they sat beneath the great Iroko tree, Nneka took his small hands in her weathered ones. "Chukwudi, my child, there is something you must know. You live here not because you are unwanted, but because the village believes you carry a debt. When you were born, your mother died. Our people's law says that you took her life even though you were innocent. They sent you here, to the prison of shadows, until you could understand and seek redemption." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "I killed my mother?" "No, child. Birth is a dangerous journey, and sometimes the traveler does not reach the other shore. Your mother chose to bring you into this world. She chose you. Never forget that." But the words settled into Chukwudi's heart like stones, heavy and cold. From that day forward, he carried a guilt that no child should bear. He would lie awake at night, staring at the stars through the canopy of leaves, wondering what kind of monster he must be, to have taken the life of someone who loved him before they even met. As he grew into a young boy of 10, then 12, then 14, Chukwudi became strong and wise beyond his years. Nneka taught him everything: how to heal with herbs, how to read the signs of nature, how to listen to the whispers of the ancestors. He learned to survive in the forest, to move like a shadow, to understand the language of all living things. But more than anything, he loved the mother he never knew. Nneka would tell him stories every evening, how Adaize would dance in the rain, how she cared for the sick, how her laughter could chase away the darkest moods. On his 16th birthday, Nneka sat him down with an unusual solemnity. "Tomorrow you must return to the village. You have reached the age of understanding. It is time for you to face the elders and seek your redemption." Fear and excitement warred in Chukwudi's chest. For 16 years, the prison of shadows had been his entire world. Nneka was his only family. The thought of leaving terrified him, but the thought of finally proving his worth, of honoring his mother's sacrifice, pulled him forward. The journey back to the village took half a day. With each step, Chukwudi's heart pounded harder. When he emerged from the forest and saw the compound spread before him, the children playing in the square, the women carrying water from the stream, he felt like a stranger in a land that should have been his home. Word of his return spread like wildfire. By the time he reached the village square, a crowd had gathered. Some looked at him with curiosity, others with suspicion, and still others with pity. He stood tall, though his hands trembled, and requested an audience with the Council of Elders. Ichie Okonkwo, now much older but still bearing the red cap of authority, regarded him with ancient eyes. The council convened immediately. "Chukwudi, son of Adazi," the village head began, "you have returned to us after 16 years in the prison of shadows. You were sent there because your birth brought death. You have grown in the sacred grove, learned from the keeper. Now you must tell us, Do you understand your debt? And how do you propose to repay it? Chukwudi's voice was steady, though emotion churned beneath. Honorable elders, I understand the law that sent me away. I understand that my mother died bringing me into this world. But I have spent 16 years thinking, learning, and seeking wisdom. And I have come to realize something. He paused, gathering courage. I cannot repay a debt I did not create. My mother did not die because I was evil or because I chose violence. She died because birth is a sacred battle, and sometimes warriors fall. She died choosing love over fear, choosing to bring life into the world despite the risks. To call that my debt is to dishonor her choice. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some elders frowned, others leaned forward with interest. I cannot bring my mother back, Chukwudi continued, his voice growing stronger, but I can honor her memory. I can use the knowledge Nneka taught me to heal others. I can help mothers survive childbirth so that other children don't grow up as I did, marked as guilty for the crime of being born. This is how I choose to balance the scales, not by accepting false guilt, but by preventing future loss. Ichie Uguchukwu, the eldest, who had pronounced sentence 16 years ago, now stood with great effort. His voice creaked like old wood. In all my years, I have seen many who came to seek redemption. They brought offerings, they performed rituals, they begged forgiveness. But you, young man, you challenged the very foundation of our law. The crowd held its breath. And perhaps, the old man continued, a slight smile touching his lips, that is exactly what we needed. Our traditions kept us safe for generations, but traditions can also become prisons. We imprisoned you for a debt you did not owe. We imprisoned ourselves in old thinking. He turned to face his fellow elders. I say the boy speaks truth. He carries no debt. His mother's death was tragedy, not murder. Let us honor Adazi's memory not by punishing her son, but by learning from her sacrifice. Let us allow this young man to heal our village, to help our mothers survive childbirth, to turn his pain into purpose. One by one, the elders nodded. Even Ichie Okonkwo, tears streaming down his weathered face, nodded his agreement. Chukwudi, son of Adazi, the village head declared, you are free. The debt is forgiven. No, the debt never existed. Welcome home. The crowd erupted in celebration, but the loudest cry came from an old woman pushing through the masses. Obina, Adazi's brother, now gray-haired and bent with age, fell to his knees before Chukwudi. My nephew, my sister's son, I am sorry. I am so sorry. I should have fought harder for you. I should have rejected the law that took us from you. Chukwudi helped him to his feet and embraced him. Uncle, the past cannot be changed, but we can shape tomorrow. In the month that followed, Chukwudi became the village healer, specializing in helping mothers through childbirth. Using the knowledge Nneka had given him, combined with new techniques he learned and developed, he saved countless lives. Mothers who might have died now lived to hold their children. Babies who might have been lost now grew strong. He built a small clinic near the village square, and above the door he carved his mother's name, Adazi. Every life he saved was a tribute to her, every healthy baby a testament to her choice. Nneka came to live in the village, honored now as the wise woman she had always been. Together, they trained others in the healing arts. The prison of shadows was transformed from a place of exile into a sacred teaching ground where healers learned the secrets of the forest. And slowly, painfully, the village changed its laws. The elders decreed that no child would ever again be blamed for a mother's death in childbirth. Instead,
Such children would be honored as survivors, as carriers of their mother's last gifts, as reminders that life is precious and fleeting. Years later, when Chukwudi had gray in his own hair, he would take his students to his mother's grave. There, beneath the shade of a mango tree she had planted as a girl, he would tell them her story. My mother died so that I could live. She made a choice born of love, not obligation. For years, I carried guilt for a crime I did not commit. But I learned that the greatest way to honor those who sacrifice for us is not to punish ourselves, but to make their sacrifice meaningful, to live fully, to love deeply, to help others. He would place his hand on the stone marker bearing her name, Adazi, daughter of the king. She was no princess, but she was royalty in the ways that matter. She taught me, though I never heard her voice, that love is always worth the risk, that life is always worth fighting for, that traditions must serve the living, not imprison them. And the students would return to the village, carrying her story, her legacy, her love forward into the future. The child of two worlds, they called him. Born in pain, raised in exile, freed by truth, and remembered for love. His story became a folk tale told around fires, passed from grandmother to grandchild, a reminder that sometimes the greatest courage is questioning what everyone believes to be true. And somewhere in the realm of the ancestors, Adazi smiled, knowing that her son had not only survived, but had transformed tragedy into triumph, guilt into grace, and death into an everlasting legacy of life. This is the story of Chukwudi, and this is how one child changed an entire village's understanding of justice, love, and the true meaning of redemption.